She lost her son in court and disappeared. For years later, she dropped a tray of champagne, and her ex nearly fainted. Why? What she knew could destroy him. Clara Dane didn't cry when the judge said the words. She didn't plead, didn't beg, didn't even blink. She stood frozen in that polished courtroom, silk blouse buttoned to the throat, hair pinned into a perfect knot. One hand clutched her wrist like she was holding herself upright through sheer force of will. Full custody awarded to the father, Mr. Grant Lennox. A heartbeat stopped. Primary residence to remain at Braemere Estate. The house she designed. The garden she planted. The nursery she decorated with watercolor constellations. Supervised visitation at the court's discretion. That line broke something. Across the aisle, Grant sat in his navy suit, unmoved. Perfect. Distant. He didn't even glance at her. Not when the ruling was read. Not when their 6-year-old son, Lucas, buried his face in her coat and clung to her with trembling fingers. The bailiff stepped forward gently. Lucas cried, and Clara knelt. She wrapped her arms around her son, kissed his temple, and whispered, "I love you. I'll come back for you. I swear it." They took him anyway. She walked out of Westcourt Hall with no tears, no words. Her lawyer tried to say something about appeals, paperwork, maybe hope. Clara didn't hear him. The press was waiting at the bottom of the marble steps. Flashbulbs, headlines, whispers. They said she'd step back for the well-being of the child. They called her fragile. They printed things no one could prove, but that Grant's money made easy to believe. Unstable, neglectful, grieving too long after his mother's death. They said she'd lost herself. What they didn't say. The therapist who testified had once dated Grant's sister. The prescriptions were falsified. The breakdown? Fabricated. Clara wasn't unstable. She was outmaneuvered. She didn't lose her son. She was eliminated. She emptied her accounts, sold the townhouse, deleted every photo but one. A candid of Lucas holding a paper star, smiling like the world hadn't learned how to break him yet. She became someone else. Clara Dane became Elle Maddox, a name pulled from a college ID buried in a drawer. And then she disappeared. 4 years later, Alder Crest Estate, Switzerland. Snow fell in velvet silence the night it happened. I was no one now, just a name on a payroll. She managed logistics at Alder Crest Estate, a luxury chalet resort hidden in the Swiss Alps. Her job was clean, quiet, invisible. She didn't speak unless spoken to, didn't drink, didn't date, didn't tell anyone she used to be Clara Dane. Until that night. The gala was for an energy conglomerate's merger. She wasn't meant to be near the ballroom, just fixing a supply error for the caviar bar. But one wrong hallway turned everything. She stepped out a side corridor, tray in hand, and stopped cold. Across the ballroom, beneath a chandelier that looked like a frozen starburst, stood Grant Lennox. Sharp suit, signature Bourbon, surrounded by executives. Still dangerous, still beautiful, still a man who'd gutted her and never looked back. But beside him, Lucas, her son, older now, broader shoulders, still with that gentle slouch when he got nervous. Her fingers loosened. The tray hit the floor. Crystal shattered across marble. Champagne fizzed and spread like a wound. The room turned. Gasps. Whispers. And then Grant turned too. His eyes met hers, and color drained from his face. Because Clara Dane was supposed to be in Italy, he'd seen the contracts himself. He'd paid for her silence. She wasn't supposed to exist. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to still be breathing. Security was called. She didn't run. She didn't blink. She stepped over broken glass and looked directly at the man who stole her child. Lucas looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Recognition? A memory buried in dreams? She didn't speak to him. Not yet. She looked at Grant and said, "I'm not leaving. Not this time." And for the first time in 4 years, Grant Lennox had nothing to say. No one moved when the tray shattered. Not the guests in designer gowns and polished tuxedos. Not the security detail Grant kept discreet and deadly. Not even Grant Lennox himself. He just stood there, frozen beside Lucas, bourbon glass still in his hand, like he was staring at a ghost. Because in some ways, he was. Clara Dane had disappeared from his world 4 years ago, and he made sure she stayed gone. But now, here she was, stepping barefoot through shards of glass, the name L. Maddox still stitched on her chalet staff badge. And all she said, in front of 200 people and his own son, was, "You lied." He blinked once, and then turned to Lucas. "Go to the car," he said low. Lucas didn't move. He kept staring at her, eyes wide, like he couldn't place the dream he'd just stepped into. Her face, her voice, his mother's ghost, standing right there, in snow-dusted heels and defiance. Grant repeated it, now. Lucas obeyed this time, hesitant. But before he left, he glanced back and locked eyes with Clara. Something passed between them. Familiarity. A flicker. Not recognition exactly, but a feeling. She almost reached for him, almost whispered his name. But the guards were already closing in. They didn't drag her. No, this wasn't that kind of scene. It was Grant's event. Image mattered. He wouldn't have a scandal outside the ballroom that bore his name. So they escorted her to the east courtyard, gently, like a high society ejection. The air outside was freezing. Snow swirled in low sheets. Clara didn't shiver. She stood in silence between two guards in dark coats, hands at her sides, heart beating so loud she swore they could hear it. 5 minutes passed. Then Grant emerged. He didn't speak at first, just looked at her with that practiced billionaire calm. That look he'd used in every courtroom and every press photo. "I don't know how you got this job," he finally said, voice low-clipped. "But that ends tonight." Clara tilted her head slightly. "I didn't come here for the job." He blinked once. "I came for the truth." A beat passed. Then he exhaled, sharp, controlled. "You're not supposed to be here. I was never supposed to be erased either." She stepped forward, slowly, her breath fogging between them. "Lucas looked at me like he knew me." "He didn't," Grant replied flatly. He was confused. "You caused that." Clara's voice trembled, but not from fear. He remembers. He remembers something. He didn't answer, didn't deny it either. So she pressed harder. "You forged my psychiatric evaluation. You had your sister's firm assign the court psychologist. You paid the travel agency to reassign my visa." Grant's jaw tightened. "Watch what you say." "Or what?" she whispered. "You'll sue me again? You'll take him again?" That hit. Even his eyes flickered. "I lost everything," Clara said, stepping even closer. "I lost my home, my name, my son, and I said nothing. I rebuilt quietly." Her voice dropped lower. "But now I know you're afraid." His lips parted just slightly. And for the first time in a decade, Clara Dane saw it. Uncertainty. Just a flicker. But real. She held her breath. "You kept me away because of something. Not love. Not protection. Something else." Grant didn't reply. Instead, he turned to walk away. Always control, always retreat when emotions showed. But before he reached the door, he paused. And over his shoulder, he said, "You don't belong in his life anymore." Then he vanished into the falling snow. Claire didn't cry. Not then. Not even when she returned to the backstaff wing, where the hallway lights buzzed faintly and the wine trays were still stacked for cleanup. She didn't take off her heels. She didn't sit. She went straight to the employee tablet mounted by the kitchen, the same one she'd used just a week ago to check staff schedules. But tonight, she wasn't looking for shifts. She was looking for logs. The internal system granted limited admin access for those in logistics rotations. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to find guest movement data. Enough to search Linux's unit code. And there it was. Suite 3B Grand Linux. Flagged for security. One logged incident from last winter. Clara's heart thudded. Date, December 14th. Time, 2:42 a.m. Status, restricted. She stared at the file name, then tapped it. Password protected. She tried her assign PIN anyway. Access denied. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Her mind replayed that date, December 14th, the night she saw in the internal newsletter. Mr. Lennox's son reportedly fell ill during stay. Emergency medical call logged. But now she knew better. Something happened that night. Something someone had sealed. And it wasn't a nosebleed or a fever. Clara turned off the screen slowly. Her breath caught in her throat. She knew how systems like this worked. If it had been a health scare, it would be flagged under medical. This wasn't. This was security. Closed. Encrypted. That meant surveillance. That meant someone recorded something. Something they didn't want seen. Clara Dane didn't sleep that night. Because for the first time in years, she wasn't just hurting. She was certain. This wasn't about custody anymore. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about what they covered up, and why she'd been cut out of her son's life so ruthlessly. And whatever was on that file, it started everything. Clara couldn't sleep. Not after what she saw. Not after that log. The one labeled Suite 8B. Incident 2:42 a.m. Flag confidential. It wasn't just the timestamp. It was the word incident, and the fact that it was sealed. This wasn't a health emergency. This wasn't a noise complaint. This was buried. And anything buried inside Grant Lennox's empire came with one guarantee. It was meant to stay hidden. By sunrise, Clara was already moving. Not out of panic, but precision. She'd spent the last 4 years studying how to survive systems like his. She knew how resorts like Aldercrest stored their data. The security archive didn't live on the employee interface. But on-site backups existed. Always did. Usually one physical server locked away in tech admin and a duplicate drive stored off-network in the private systems suite behind the executive office. That's what she was aiming for. She waited until mid-morning during linen service rotation, changed into her crisp, white housekeeping uniform, tucked her old staff badge inside her sleeve, slipped into the executive level using the back freight corridor. No one stopped her. Not in a uniform. Not when you didn't make eye contact. Not when you walked like you belonged. She reached the door, systems room, staff access prohibited, tapped in her old 4-digit PIN. The light turned green. Click. She stepped inside. The room was cold, silent, humming with server fans. Nothing flashy, just a shelf of label hard drives, backlogged recordings, untouched unless a client requested a review. She found it immediately. DEC 14-8B, Seclunk. December 14th. Suite 3B. Security link. She slid the drive into the monitor dock and brought up the feed. The hallway camera outside Grant's suite flickered to life. 2:42 a.m. The video played. Silent. Black and white. Clara watched. A still hallway. One overhead light flickering. Then movement. Lucas, her son, wearing flannel pajamas, barefoot, small. He stepped out of the room, crying. He clutched a stuffed animal in one arm. The same gray rabbit she'd given him the year before the trial. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. She hadn't seen him move like that in years. The way he wiped his face with the back of his hand. The way he whispered to himself like he did when nightmares came. Then, he paused, turned, and looked up at someone stepping into the hallway behind him. A man. Not Grant. Not security. Someone else. A man Clara didn't recognize, tall, in black, with a gloved hand on Lucas's shoulder. Lucas flinched. The man bent down, whispered something. Lucas backed away. The rabbit fell. The man scooped it up. Then, he looked straight into the hallway camera, like he knew it was there, and smiled. The screen went black. Corrupted. Cut. End of file. Clara just sat there, frozen. This wasn't just surveillance. This wasn't just trauma. This was evidence. Evidence of a man near her son's door at 2 a.m., with no security report, no guest ID, no incident filing on public record. Clara replayed the final frame. The man's face was barely visible, but that smile? He knew he was being recorded. So why wasn't it reported? Why was it sealed? And why did Grant lie? Because if this was what happened that night, Clara hadn't been erased to punish her. She'd been erased to cover this up. She yanked the flash drive out of the dock and slipped it into her coat, then left. Fussed. No time to process. Not yet. She had to get off-site before Grant's team realized the backup had been accessed. She had a copy now. She had proof. But she also had a target on her back, because someone else knew she'd seen it, and they'd already buried her once. Clara didn't run through the snow. She walked. Deliberate. Sharp. Controlled. Her fingers burned from gripping the flash drive so tightly. The plastic edge had left an imprint in her skin. But she didn't loosen her hand, because this wasn't just a video. It was a trigger, and the second Grant found out it was missing, he'd pull every string to get it back. That meant time was short. She had one shot to move before the door started closing again. One person left to trust. Mark Wilder, former general counsel for Lennox Holdings. Ex-Navy. Sharp. Quiet. Clara hadn't heard his name in years. Not since the day she was served with custody papers. Not since he left the company for personal reasons, right before Grant filed his motion for sole custody. Back then, she thought he'd abandoned her. But now, she wasn't so sure, because Mark was smart. And Mark didn't run from power unless he saw something that made him walk away from it. And if anyone still had the access, the knowledge, or the connections to help her, it was him. She boarded the early rail from Aldercrest to Hinterfeld, the next town down the ridge, just far enough to get off Lennox surveillance. Her hands shook on the railing, not from cold, from memory, because when she closed her eyes, she saw it again. Lucas's face in that hallway, the stranger's hand, that smile into the camera. The drive burned hotter in her pocket now. Hinterfeld Cafe, 11:05 a.m. Mark sat in the corner booth, black sweater, no coat, as if he'd known she would come. She slid into the seat across from him. He didn't look surprised. He just studied her face for a moment, then said quietly, "You found it, didn't you?" She didn't answer, just pulled the flash drive from her coat and set it on the table like a detonator. Mark exhaled. "Clara," he said, not Elle, not Maddox. "Clara, you don't understand what you're holding." "I think I do," she said. "No," he replied. "You think it's about Grant, but it's bigger than him." She stared. He leaned forward. "That man in the hallway. He doesn't work for Grant." Clara blinked. "Then who does he work for?" Mark looked her straight in the eye. "He works for someone who paid to make you disappear." A pause. Long, heavy, absolute. Clara's pulse slowed, then accelerated. This wasn't just blackmail. This wasn't just corruption. This was conspiracy. And Lucas? He wasn't collateral. He was the reason. Mark's voice dropped. "They've buried this once. If you bring this to the wrong person, they won't ruin you again." "What do I do then?" she whispered. He reached across the table, slid the flash drive back toward her. "You leak it." Her breath caught. "To who?" He looked out the window. Snow falling again. Cars moving. A man at the counter watching, just a little too long. Someone who's not afraid to bleed for the truth. Before she could ask what he meant, Mark stood. "Don't go back to Aldercrest. Don't go back to your room. You have 2 hours before Grant knows you're missing. And once he does," his eyes met hers again, "you'll have more than a custody battle on your hands." He walked away, left her with the bill, and a choice. Clara sat there, alone, in the booth that suddenly felt too exposed. She stared at the flash drive, and for the first time, she understood the weight of what she was really fighting. Not just a man, not just a memory, a system, a network of shadows. And Lucas, her boy, her heart, her reason was still inside it. She tucked the drive into her coat and walked out the door without looking back. She didn't go back to Aldercrest. Not for her coat, not for her pay, not even for the photo tucked inside her locker. The one of her and Lucas, taken 2 weeks before the trial, with hot chocolate on both their mouths and stars behind their heads. She didn't need the photo anymore, because she had his face in motion now. She had proof. The train station restroom smelled like bleach and silence. Clara changed fast, pulling jeans and a slate gray sweater from the overnight bag she'd been living out of since she left Beaumont. She scrubbed the red off her lips with a paper towel and stuffed her staff badge deep into the trash. El Maddox was gone. Clara Dane was back. She took a tram down to a lower village. No name on the sign, just a snow-dusted road and a bakery with Wi-Fi. Inside, she found a table in the back, away from the window, and pulled out the slim travel laptop she hadn't opened in over a year. Her hands shook as she typed, not from fear, from clarity. For the first time since the custody trial, she wasn't trapped. She was in motion. Her old alias still worked. Hallie Cross, a freelance contributor login for a journalist-run drop server in Prague. She hadn't used it since Grant made sure her name was poison in every European newsroom. But Hallie had history, and that meant access. She typed faster than she had in years. Opened a new, encrypted folder. Uploaded the video from the hallway. December 14th, 2:42 a.m., Suite 8B. She pulled one still frame from the feed. The man, the child, the look into the camera. She wrote one line beneath it. "You don't know me, but you know what this means." Then a second line. "This man was never reported. This footage was sealed. Ask why." She hovered her finger over the send button and whispered to herself, "Don't break this time." Then she clicked send. The file uploaded in 6 seconds. Status: pending view. Then received. Clara leaned back. Her breath came in sharp exhales full of 5 years she'd never gotten to grieve. It was out. She had finally told the world. And even if no one believed her yet, someone would have to answer for that man's smile. She ordered tea, hands still trembling. She opened her phone to check backup protocols. No signal. She tapped. Refreshed. Still nothing. Her stomach turned. She restarted the laptop. The browser froze. Then the screen blinked. Once. And everything went black. She stared. The machine rebooted. But this time, not to her home screen. To code. White blocks on black. Then static. Then nothing. Wiped. The entire system had been hit. Not jammed. Not hacked. Neutralized. Someone had found her drop. Someone fast. She slammed the lid shut and stood. Panic rising, not from fear, but from realization. She reached for her coat. Stopped. There, outside the bakery window, a man, standing under the cafe awning with a paper bag in hand, like he'd just picked up croissants. Except he hadn't, because he hadn't ordered, hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. He just stood there, still, too still. Gloves, clean-cut coat, wire in his collar. He saw her and smiled. The same smile, the one from a video. Not him, but one of them. She didn't wait. She bolted through the kitchen, past a line cook cursing in Swiss German, out the side alley. Her boots hit slush. Her heart thundered. She didn't know where she was going, just that she couldn't stay here. She didn't stop until she hit the bridge outside the village line. There, she pulled her phone again. No signal, but one message had come through. Blocked number. No header. One sentence. The boy stays safe if you stay silent. Final warning. Clara stared at it. For a long, terrible second, she almost broke. Almost considered it. Because they knew where she was. They knew about Lucas. And, suddenly, she was back in that courtroom again, watching a judge nod while her whole life was signed away. But then, she remembered something. Lucas's face in the hallway. The way he flinched. The rabbit she gave him falling to the floor. She remembered Grant's silence. Mark's face in the cafe. And the camera still running while that man smiled. She didn't delete the message. She saved it. And she whispered out loud, "You should have buried me deeper." Then she turned off her phone, tucked the flash drive into the lining of her coat, and disappeared into the snow. The train was nearly empty. Clara sat with her back to the window, snow rushing past behind her. Her coat was soaked. The flash drive was sealed in a plastic bag inside her inner pocket. And her phone was off. She was a ghost again. But this time, not hiding, hunting. She didn't know if this would work. Didn't know if the woman would even speak to her. But she had no choice. Because there was only one person still inside Grant's circle. Someone who'd once smiled from the witness stand as Clara lost everything. Who might finally be ready to confess. Vanessa Lennox, Grant's older sister, former PR strategist for Lennox Holdings, family darling, and the one who always cleaned up behind the scenes. Until she didn't. Until she resigned 6 months ago with no press, no statement, and no warning. It wasn't public, but Clara had followed the move quietly. People like Vanessa didn't step away from power unless something cracked. And Clara was about to find out what. She took a taxi from the station to a private suburb on the west side of Bern. Modern homes, gated drives, discreet wealth. Vanessa's estate sat behind a silver gate lined with pine trees, cold, clinical, empty. Clara walked up the stone path, boots crunching with each step. She rang the bell once. No answer. Again. Still nothing. She turned to leave, then heard the lock click. The door creaked open. Vanessa Lennox stood in the entryway in a gray cashmere robe, her hair tied back, no makeup. She looked exhausted, older, like truth had been weighing on her for years. She stared at Clara for a long moment before saying, voice flat, "If you're here to scream at me, wait until I've made tea." Inside, Everything smelled like bergamot and money. Clara sat stiff on a minimalist leather couch while Vanessa moved slowly around the kitchen. Placing cups on a tray like this was any other Tuesday. "I haven't seen you since the trial," she said. Clara's jaw clenched. "You lied." Vanessa didn't argue. She poured water into a teapot. "I did." Clara stared. "Why?" Vanessa finally looked at her. Her eyes weren't cold. They were tired. "Because he asked me to, and you just obeyed." A pause. Vanessa sipped, then answered. "Because I owed him. Because I was afraid. Because I told myself you'd survive it." "Pick one." Clara stood. "This isn't a reunion. I need answers." She pulled the flash drive from her coat and held it out. Vanessa's hand trembled when she took it. She plugged it into her sleek black laptop, and the hallway footage began to play. Clara watched Vanessa's face the entire time. Her lips parted slightly when the man appeared, tightened when Lucas flinched, and when that smile hit the lens. Vanessa stood up, walked away, into the kitchen, and vomited into the sink. Clara didn't speak. She waited. Vanessa returned 5 minutes later, pale, wiping her hands on a cloth napkin. "I thought it was gone," she whispered. Clara stepped closer. "What is this?" Vanessa didn't sit down. She just stood there and said, "That man, his name is Leon Brandt. He's not security. He's not staff. Then who is he?" Vanessa looked down at the floor. "He's the man Grant paid to follow you." "And Lucas." Clara felt her knees buckle. Vanessa saw it. "I told him to stop," she whispered. "I told him it was going too far. Why didn't you say anything?" Vanessa looked her dead in the eye. "Because I didn't think you'd survive it." The room went silent. Just the whir of the laptop fan, still open on the frozen frame. The man in black. Lucas crying. Clara swallowed hard. Why Lucas? Why follow a child? Vanessa's voice dropped. Because Lucas knew something, and whatever he saw that night, in that hallway, Grant would have burned down the world to make sure he forgot. The laptop screen was still frozen on the image. Lucas in the hallway, eyes wide, rabbit on the floor, and the man in black, Leon Brandt, smiling at the camera like it was a mirror. Vanessa Lennox sat on the edge of her kitchen stool, visibly shaking. She looked 10 years older than she had an hour ago. Clara didn't sit. She couldn't. She paced slowly in front of the window, heart hammering, mind spiraling through everything she hadn't seen. "You said Grant paid him," Clara said, voice low, "to follow me. And Lucas." Vanessa nodded slowly. "It started before the custody hearing. He wanted leverage. Surveillance, mostly. But when the therapist report didn't hold up, he escalated." Clara turned, eyes narrowing. "To what?" Vanessa didn't answer. So Clara leaned in, voice sharp. "To what, Vanessa?" Vanessa swallowed. "To memory treatment." Clara froze. "What do you mean?" Vanessa looked up, pale, quiet. "After that night at Aldercrest, Lucas told a teacher something. Said he saw a man at night in the hallway who told him not to cry." Clara blinked. "That's what he saw." "No," Vanessa said. "That's just what he said. What he remembered." She hesitated, but it didn't match the logs. The log said Lucas never left the suite, that there was no footage, no lift, no record, because it was sealed, because Grant paid to erase it. The words landed like bricks. Clara sat down slowly, breath short. He had the footage wiped, and then what? Tried to make Lucas forget. Vanessa nodded. He brought in a specialist. Memory redirection therapy, usually used for trauma. Clara's eyes widened. "You mean hypnosis?" "Worse," Vanessa whispered. "Behavioral reshaping." She slid a folder across the counter. Clara opened it. Medical invoices, private clinic records, confidentiality waivers. Pediatricians sign off with a forged signature. Lucas Lennox, treatment plan, sleep response correction, aversion control, light sedative therapy. Clara's hands trembled as she turned the pages. The phrases blurred. Targeted neural interruption. Memory suppression protocol. Behavioral redirect. "He did this to a child," she said. Vanessa nodded. "To your child?" Clara stood. Her body felt hot and hollow at the same time. "He didn't just keep him from me. He rewired him." Vanessa didn't deny it. She just whispered. Because Lucas remembered something Grant couldn't afford for him to ever say out loud. Clara stared out the window, fists clenched. The The snowfall outside was steady, soft, beautiful. It didn't match the rage building in her chest. Lucas had nightmares. That's what the court had said. That's why Grant had insisted on private school therapists. But now, those weren't nightmares. They were memories. And he'd been told, trained, not to believe them. She turned back to Vanessa. What did Lucas see that night? Vanessa hesitated, then said, I don't know. Liar. Clara, you knew about the footage. About the man. You know what happened. I know what Grant was covering up, she said softly. But I don't know why. Clara's voice shook. I want my son back. Vanessa's eyes welled, and this time, not out of guilt, out of grief. Then you'll need more than a flash drive. I have truth. Vanessa nodded. Then you need to make sure he hears it. Not from the news. Not from lawyers. From you. She waited until midnight. Vanessa gave her the number. Not Grant's. Lucas's. A secondary device used for emergencies. Hidden from the public line. No GPS tracking. He keeps it in a drawer, Vanessa said. Doesn't even know it works. But Clara had to believe it did. Because this couldn't go through Grant. This had to be between them. Mother. So, whatever was left of that sacred thread. She dialed. No ID. No voice on the line. Just ringing. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then, a click. Silence. Hello, she said. There was no response. Just breath. Small. Light. A child's breath. Lucas, she whispered. Is that you? More silence. Then, who is this? Clara almost lost it. The voice was deeper than she remembered. But it was him. Older. Guarded. Lucas, she said, steadier this time. It's me. It's Mom. Silence again. Then, that's not funny. Clara blinked. Sweetheart, it's really me. I know this is confusing. I know I'm not supposed to. He said you left. Her breath hitched. I didn't, she said softly. I never wanted to. I tried to stay. I fought. You didn't come back. A pause. I waited at the garden. For weeks. Clara's heart shattered. She pressed her hand against her mouth. I know, she whispered. They didn't let me. They said I wasn't safe. They said I was sick. But none of that was true. Silence. Then, you smell like jasmine. The words nearly broke her. He remembered. The perfume. The one she wore the night she read him bedtime stories. Every night. Until the day they took him. He remembered. Even after everything Grant had done to his mind, something stayed. I still do, she whispered. I sprayed it in your old room. Silence again, but softer this time. Clara pressed forward. Lucas, I need you to remember something. Something that happened at Aldercrest. He didn't speak, so she tried again. Do you remember the hallway? The man. Another long pause. Then, Daddy says I was dreaming. You weren't, Clara said gently. You were awake. He says you make things up. I never lied to you, she said. He said I saw something that scared me, and that you'd make it worse if I told you. You can tell me now. I'm not allowed. The phrase sounded rehearsed. Programmed. Clara's eyes welled. Lucas, do you remember the rabbit? Silence. Then a tiny gasp. He took it. That man. He took it. Clara nearly collapsed. Yes, she said, tears streaming now. He did. And you cried. And you tried to run. But he said if I said anything, they'd send you away again. That was a lie, Clara whispered. I'm right here. You are. Yes, baby. Will you come get me? Her heart cracked open. Soon. I promise. But then, static. The line crackled. Then a click. Call ended. Cut. Clara stared at the screen. Her hands trembling. Her breath shallow. He remembered. Not everything. Not clearly. But enough. Enough to know she wasn't a ghost. She was real. And he wanted her back. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. She sat by the window of Vanessa's study as the sun came up. In her lap was the flash drive. In her hands, the folder of forged documents. And on her phone, one message. Unknown sender. Time, 2:14 a.m. He remembers. That changes everything. It started with silence. No calls. No press. No response from the drop Clara had leaked. No reaction from Grant. Too quiet. Clara had been hunted before. But this was something worse. This was the sound of a man preparing to strike. Vanessa felt it too. He's not going to sue, she said. He's going to bury it before it hits court. Ow, Clara asked. Vanessa looked down. Didn't answer. And that's when Clara realized something chilling. You didn't just help him in court, did you? Vanessa looked up, slow, eyes glassy, expression haunted. I told myself I was protecting the company, she whispered. But all I did was help him buy time. That afternoon, Clara opened her laptop one final time. The backup copy of the video, the therapist forms, the altered files from Lucas's treatment. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was going to broadcast it. Not leak, not whisper. Broadcast. She contacted a journalist she once trusted, a woman named Elise Duval, now running a high-profile digital channel for political whistleblowers. I don't want money, Clara typed. I want daylight. Elise responded in seconds. Upload now. We'll live in 40 minutes. Clara attached the files. Hit send, then closed the laptop and waited. But the knock came first. Not the doorbell. The knock. Heavy. Deliberate. Vanessa froze. Looked at Clara. They both knew. Clara stood slowly. She didn't look out the peephole. She didn't run. She opened the door. And there he was. Grant Lennox. No security. No smite. No script. Just a man himself. He looked wrong. Like he hadn't slept. Like he'd finally started to bleed under his own mask. Where is he? Clara said coldly. I'm not here for him, he said. I'm here for you. Vanessa stepped forward. But Grant's eyes flicked to her. Stay out of this, Vanessa. No. He turned to Clara. You leaked it. She didn't deny it. You think I'll believe you? He asked. I don't care anymore, she said. It's the truth. You think that matters? You think after everything, anyone will care about a 6-year-old memory and an ex-wife with a history of... Don't, Clara cut him off. Don't say another word about who I used to be. You made me disappear. You made me watch as he forgot me. Her voice cracked. Grant didn't respond. Just stared. She stepped closer. I saw the footage. I know what Leon did. I know about the therapy. I know you rewired him. Still, no reaction. She shoved him. Say something. And finally, Grant said, he remembered you. That was the problem. The room went quiet. Even Vanessa gasped. Grant kept going, calm, like confessing the weather, the rabbit, the hallway, the nightmares. I thought I could erase you, make it clean. So, you tried to erase your own son's memory? Clara shouted. He needed to let you go. You didn't do this for him. You did it for yourself. Grant stared at her, long and hollow. If I lose him, I lose everything. A phone buzzed in the next room. Vanessa picked it up. Her voice dropped. Clara. She turned the screen to her. The video was live. Clara's footage. Her story. Her voice, in her own words, playing across thousands of screens. It was everywhere. Grant stepped back. Just one step. You don't get to control it anymore, Clara said. You don't get to write the ending. And from down the hallway, a voice. Small, clear, shaking. Mom. Clara turned. Lucas. In the hallway. Boyamus. A coat thrown over them. Vanessa's assistant must have brought him. He stood there, watching, breathing, remembering. Is it true? Clara's heart stopped. Grant stepped forward, but Lucas shrank back. Is it true? He asked again. Eyes on Clara. She knelt, didn't cry, just looked him in the eye. Yes, baby. I never left you. They just told you I did. A beat. Lucas looked at Grant. You said she ran away. Grant opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Lucas turned back to Clara. Can I come with you? The news didn't stop. For 3 days, Clara's name was everywhere. The billionaire's wife who never left. Mother erased. Now the truth speaks. Grant Lennox scandal sparks custody reversal and corporate inquiry. They wanted interviews, books, deals, a docuseries. She didn't take a single one, because none of that mattered. Not like this. She watched Lucas sleep from across the suite, curled into a hotel blanket, his rabbit by his side, thumb brushing his cheek. He hadn't asked for explanations. Not yet. He hadn't asked for custody plans or courtrooms or new rules. He'd only asked, are you staying? And she'd said, as long as you need. Grant didn't fight. Not after the footage. Not after the emails. Not after the board stripped him of his seat and 2 class action lawsuits landed within hours of each other. He walked away, signed over joint custody without a word. No apology, no resistance, just silence. And that was fine. Some battles didn't need screaming. Some endings didn't need blood. Clara didn't return to Switzerland. She and Lucas rented a small cottage by the sea, where he could see the stars again and she could teach him the constellations like she used to. He didn't remember all of it, but he remembered enough. Sometimes at night, he'd say, "I think I remember your voice reading stories." Or, "Did you really spray jasmine on my pillow?" And she'd smile. Every night. One morning, she woke early, made coffee, opened her laptop, not to leak, not to run, but to write, for herself. And then, like a whisper through the steam rising from her cup, her phone buzzed. "Mark, heard you survived." She smiled. "Barely, but I did." "What now?" She looked at Lucas, still asleep in the other room, then at the sea, glittering just beyond the window. And she typed, "Now I rest, then I rebuild." She didn't win everything. She didn't get it all back, but she got the only thing that ever mattered. And this time, she wasn't losing it again.